Employer's daughter lies and causes the dismissal of the housemaid who worked in her home. When the girl's father discovers the truth, he does something unimaginable. In the sun-drenched kitchen of the Hartley mansion, Maria Gonzalez hummed softly as she wiped down the gleaming granite countertops. The aroma of freshly baked cookies wafted through the air, a treat she had prepared for young Olivia's after-school snack. At 45, Maria's kind face bore the gentle lines of a life filled with hard work and genuine care for others. Her dark hair, streaked with the occasional silver strand, was neatly tied back in a practical bun. For the past decade, Maria had been an integral part of the Hartley household. More than just a housemaid, she was a nurturing presence, especially for 16-year-old Olivia. The Hartleys, Richard, a successful business tycoon, and his wife Eleanor, were often absent, leaving Maria to manage not just the house, but also to provide a stable, loving environment for their daughter. As the clock struck 3, the front door burst open, and Olivia's voice echoed through the foyer. "I'm home!" she called out, her tone a mix of teenage exuberance and the entitled confidence that came from a life of privilege. Maria smiled, wiping her hands on her apron as she moved to greet the girl. "Welcome home, Olivia. How was school today?" Olivia breezed into the kitchen, designer backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder. Her long blonde hair cascaded down her back, and her blue eyes sparkled with mischief. "Ugh, boring as usual," she replied, reaching for a cookie. "Is Dad home yet?" Maria shook her head. "Not yet, mija. He called to say he'd be late tonight. Important meeting. You know how it is." A flicker of disappointment crossed Olivia's face, quickly replaced by a shrug of feigned indifference. "Whatever. I'm going to Brittany's house then." Maria interjected gently. "What about your homework? You know your father's rule. Homework first, then free time." Olivia rolled her eyes dramatically. "Come on, Maria, it's Friday. I'll do it over the weekend, I promise." Maria stood her ground, her voice firm but kind. "Olivia, you know that's not how it works. Your education is important. Do your homework first, then you can go to Brittany's." The teenager's face clouded over, a storm brewing in her eyes. "You can't tell me what to do. You're just the maid." The words stung, but Maria didn't flinch. She'd weathered Olivia's temper tantrums before. "I may be the maid, but I'm also responsible for you when your parents aren't home. Now, homework first." Olivia glared at Maria, snatching up her backpack. "Fine, but I'm telling Dad how mean you're being." As Olivia stomped up the stairs, Maria sighed, her heart heavy. She loved Olivia like her own daughter, having watched her grow from a sweet child into a sometimes difficult teenager. She understood the girl's frustration with her parents' frequent absences, but it pained her to see how easily Olivia could dismiss years of care and affection. In the quiet of the kitchen, Maria resumed her chores, her thoughts drifting to her own family. Her son, Miguel, was working his way through college, determined to create a better life for himself. Maria's job with the Hartleys had been a blessing, allowing her to support Miguel's dreams. She couldn't help but contrast Miguel's gratitude and hard work with Olivia's sense of entitlement. As the afternoon wore on, Maria prepared dinner, hoping that Richard would make it home in time to share a meal with his daughter. She worried about the growing distance between father and daughter, sensing Olivia's need for attention and validation. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke through her reverie. Richard was home earlier than expected. Maria quickly set another place at the table, grateful for this chance for family time. Richard Hartley strode into the house, his commanding presence filling the space. At 50, he cut an impressive figure in his tailored suit, salt and pepper hair perfectly styled. "Evening, Maria," he called out, his voice warm but tired. "Good evening, Mr. Hartley," Maria replied. "Dinner's ready if you'd like to eat with Olivia." A smile brightened Richard's face. "Wonderful. I was hoping to catch her before she went out." He loosened his tie, heading towards the stairs. "Olivia? Sweetheart? I'm home." As father and daughter reunited upstairs, Maria set the table, a bittersweet feeling washing over her. She was happy for Olivia to have this time with her father, but she couldn't shake the sense that something was about to change. Little did she know, the events set in motion that evening would soon turn all their lives upside down. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the bay windows of the Hartley home, casting a warm glow on the breakfast nook. Richard sat at the table, sipping his coffee and scrolling through emails on his tablet. Olivia slouched in her chair, pushing her scrambled eggs around her plate with disinterest. Maria bustled about the kitchen, cleaning up the morning's cooking mess. She couldn't shake the feeling of tension in the air, a stark contrast to the peaceful start of the day outside. "Olivia," Richard began, setting down his tablet, "I was thinking we could spend some time together today. How about a trip to that art gallery you've been wanting to visit?" Olivia's eyes lit up momentarily before clouding over with suspicion. "Really? You don't have to work?" Richard smiled, a tinge of guilt in his eyes. "I've cleared my schedule for the day. It's been too long since we've had some father-daughter time." As Olivia considered her father's offer, Maria felt a wave of relief. She had often worried about the growing distance between the two, and this seemed like a perfect opportunity for them to reconnect. "Okay," Olivia agreed, a small smile playing on her lips. "But can we go shopping afterward? There's this new boutique downtown I've been dying to check out." Richard chuckled, reaching out to ruffle his daughter's hair affectionately. "Sure thing, princess. Why don't you go get ready?" As Olivia bounded up the stairs, her earlier sullenness forgotten, Richard turned to Maria. "Thank you for always being here for her, Maria. I know I'm not around as much as I should be." Maria nodded, touched by his gratitude. "It's my pleasure, Mr. Hartley. Olivia is a good girl at heart." Richard sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I hope so. I worry sometimes that Eleanor and I have given her too much, that we haven't taught her the value of hard work and kindness like your Miguel." Before Maria could respond, Olivia's voice rang out from upstairs. "Dad, have you seen my blue cashmere sweater? I can't find it anywhere." "I'll go help her look," Maria offered, making her way upstairs. In Olivia's room, clothes were strewn across every surface. The teenager was rifling through her closet, frustration evident on her face. "Maria, where's my blue sweater? The one Dad got me for my birthday?" Maria frowned, scanning the room. "I washed it 2 days ago and hung it in your closet, mija. Are you sure it's not there?" Olivia huffed, tossing more clothes onto her bed. "Well, it's not here now. Did you take it?" Taken aback by the accusation, Maria shook her head. "Of course not, Olivia. Why would I take your sweater?" "I don't know," Olivia snapped, her earlier good mood evaporating. "But it was expensive, and now it's gone." Maria took a deep breath, reminding herself of Olivia's youth and quick temper. "Let's look together, okay? I'm sure it's here somewhere." As they searched, Maria couldn't help but notice the sheer volume of clothes Olivia possessed. Designer labels peeked out from every drawer and hanger. It was a stark reminder of the vast difference between Olivia's world and her own. After several minutes of fruitless searching, Olivia threw herself onto her bed with a dramatic sigh. "It's hopeless. Someone must have taken it." "Olivia," Maria began gently, "no one has been in this house except for your family and me. The sweater has to be here somewhere." The teenager sat up, her eyes narrowing. "Well, I certainly didn't misplace it. And if you say you put it in my closet," the implication hung heavy in the air. Maria felt a chill run down her spine, realizing where Olivia's thoughts were heading. "Olivia, please don't jump to conclusions. I would never—" "Dad!" Olivia's shout cut through Maria's plea. Footsteps thundered up the stairs as Richard appeared in the doorway, concern etched on his face. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Olivia's lower lip trembled as she looked at her father. "My blue cashmere sweater, the one you gave me for my birthday. It's gone, and Maria says she put it in my closet, but it's not there." Richard's brow furrowed as he looked between his daughter and the housekeeper. "I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. Maria has been with us for years, Olivia. She wouldn't take your sweater." but doubt had already taken root. Olivia's eyes welled with tears, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But Dad, what if she did? It was so expensive." Maria felt as though the floor had dropped out from beneath her. She looked pleadingly at Richard, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Mr. Hartley, I swear to you, I would never take anything from this house. I've cared for Olivia since she was a little girl." Richard held up a hand, his expression troubled. "Let's all calm down. I'm sure the sweater will turn up. Why don't we take a rain check on our outing, Olivia? We can look for it together later." As Richard left the room, the air between Maria and Olivia crackled with tension. The housekeeper looked at the girl she had helped raise, seeing not the sweet child she remembered, but a stranger capable of such a hurtful accusation. Little did either of them know this moment would set in motion a chain of events that would change their lives forever. The following days in the Hartley household were fraught with an undercurrent of suspicion and unease. Maria went about her duties with her usual diligence, but the warmth that once filled the home had dissipated, replaced by cold glances and terse exchanges. Olivia had taken to following Maria around the house, watching her every move with narrowed eyes. The teenager's once carefree demeanor had morphed into something harder, more accusatory. Maria felt the weight of Olivia's gaze as she dusted the living room shelves, the silence between them heavy and oppressive. "I know you took it," Olivia said suddenly, her voice cutting through the quiet like a knife. Maria paused, her hand stilling on the feather duster. She turned to face Olivia, her heart heavy. "Mija, I've told you, I would never take anything from you or your family. I care about you too much." Olivia scoffed, crossing her arms. "Stop calling me that. I'm not your daughter, and if you cared, you wouldn't have stolen from me." The words stung, but Maria held her composure. "Olivia, please, think about all the years we've spent together. Would I risk throwing that away over a sweater?" For a moment, uncertainty flickered in Olivia's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by stubborn anger. "People do desperate things for money. Maybe you needed it for your son's college tuition or something." Maria shook her head, fighting back tears. "Miguel works hard for his education. We would never resort to stealing, no matter how difficult things get." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Richard walked in, his brow furrowed as he took in the tense scene before him. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, his gaze moving between Maria and Olivia. Olivia immediately turned to her father, her eyes welling with tears. "Dad, I can't take this anymore. Things keep disappearing from my room. First the sweater, and now my silver bracelet is gone too." Maria's heart sank. This was the first she'd heard of a missing bracelet. "Mr. Hartley, I swear I haven't taken anything. I would never—" Richard held up a hand, silencing her. His expression was troubled, torn between his long-standing trust in Maria and his instinct to believe his daughter. "Maria, I think we need to have a talk in private. Olivia, go to your room, please." As Olivia stomped up the stairs, Richard led Maria to his study. The room, usually a place of warmth and intellectual discussion, now felt cold and intimidating. Richard sat behind his desk, gesturing for Maria to take a seat across from him. "Maria," he began, his voice heavy, "you've been with our family for a long time. I've always trusted you, but these accusations, they're serious." Maria leaned forward, her eyes pleading. "Mr. Hartley, I understand how this looks, but I promise you, I have not taken anything. I would never betray your trust like that." Richard sighed, rubbing his temples. "I want to believe you, Maria, but Olivia is my daughter, and if she says things are missing, I have to take that seriously." "Of course I understand," Maria said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But isn't it possible that Olivia has simply misplaced these items? She has so many things." Richard's expression hardened slightly. "Are you suggesting my daughter is lying?" Maria backpedaled quickly. No, of course not. I just mean, sometimes things get lost in big houses like this." There was a long pause as Richard seemed to weigh his options. Finally, he spoke, his voice filled with regret. "Maria, I think it might be best if you take some time off. Paid leave, of course, just until we can get to the bottom of this." The words hit Maria like a physical blow. "Mr. Hartley, please. This job, it's everything to me, to Miguel. We depend on it." Richard's expression softened slightly. "I know, Maria, and that's why I'm not firing you outright. But I need to protect my family too. It's just temporary, I promise." As Maria left the study, her world spinning, she caught sight of Olivia watching from the top of the stairs. The teenager's expression was a mix of triumph and something else. Guilt? But before Maria could process it, Olivia had disappeared back into her room. That night, as Maria packed a small bag, her hands shaking, she couldn't help but wonder how things had gone so wrong so quickly. She had poured her heart into this family for years, and now, in the blink of an eye, it was all crumbling around her. As she closed the door to the Hartley home behind her, Maria sent up a silent prayer. She prayed for understanding, for justice, and most of all, for the truth to come to light. Little did she know the truth would indeed emerge, but in a way that would shake the very foundations of the Hartley family. The days following Maria's departure were filled with an uneasy quiet in the Hartley household. Richard found himself distracted at work, his thoughts constantly drifting back to the situation at home. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. Olivia, meanwhile, seemed to oscillate between moods. Some moments she was jubilant, reveling in the freedom of not having Maria's watchful eye on her. Other times, she was uncharacteristically subdued, almost guilty. One evening, as Richard returned home earlier than usual, he found Olivia sprawled on the living room couch, her phone in hand, giggling at something on the screen. "Hey, sweetheart," Richard said, loosening his tie. "How was your day?" Olivia looked up, startled. "Oh, hi, Dad. Didn't hear you come in. It was fine, I guess. Same old?" "Same old." Richard sat down beside her, trying to bridge the gap that had been growing between them. "Listen, I was thinking, maybe we could do something this weekend. Just the two of us?" Olivia's eyes lit up for a moment before dimming again. "Really? You're not too busy?" The hint of hope in her voice made Richard's heart ache. "Never too busy for you, princess. How about we go to that new amusement park you've been talking about?" A genuine smile spread across Olivia's face. "That would be awesome, Dad." As they chatted about their plans, Richard couldn't help but notice how Olivia kept glancing at her phone, as if expecting a message. Curiosity got the better of him. "Everything okay?" he asked, nodding towards the device. "You seem a bit distracted." Olivia quickly tucked the phone away. "Yeah, just waiting for Brittany to text me back about homework." Richard nodded, not entirely convinced but unwilling to push the issue. As he stood to head to his study, Olivia's phone buzzed loudly. In her haste to grab it, the device slipped from her hands, clattering to the floor. "I've got it," Richard said, bending to pick it up. As he handed it back to Olivia, he couldn't help but catch a glimpse of the message on the screen. His blood ran cold as he read the words. "OMG, I can't believe you actually got rid of Maria. What are you going to do with all that freedom now?" Richard froze, his mind racing. "Olivia," he said slowly, "what does Brittany mean by got rid of Maria?" Olivia's face paled, her eyes widening in panic. It's nothing, Dad. Just girl talk." But Richard wasn't buying it. Years of business negotiations had honed his ability to spot a lie. And right now, all his instincts were screaming that his daughter was hiding something big. "Olivia," he said, his voice stern but controlled, "I need you to tell me the truth. Right now." For a moment, it looked like Olivia might continue to deny it. But then, like a dam breaking, words began to pour out of her. "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just so angry at Maria for always telling me what to do. And then I couldn't find my sweater, and I saw an opportunity and—" Richard listened in growing horror as Olivia confessed to fabricating the entire theft story. The missing sweater had been at Brittany's house all along, borrowed for a party. The bracelet had never been missing at all. "But why, Olivia?" Richard asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this to Maria? To us?" Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she struggled to explain. "I don't know. I was just so mad, and it felt good to have some control, and then it just spiraled, and I didn't know how to take it back." Richard sat back, his mind reeling. The implications of what Olivia had done were staggering. An innocent woman, a trusted member of their household for years, had lost her job over a lie told by a petulant teenager. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Richard asked, his voice heavy with disappointment and anger. Maria depended on this job, her son's education, their livelihood. All of it was tied to her position here. Olivia's sobs grew louder. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." But Richard knew that sorry wasn't enough. Not for this. As he looked at his daughter, he saw not just the sweet girl he'd raised, but also a young woman who had made a terrible, selfish choice. A choice that had real, devastating consequences for an innocent person. In that moment, Richard knew that things would never be the same in the Hartley household. He had some difficult decisions to make. Decisions that would shape not only Olivia's future, but also his own understanding of justice and responsibility. As Olivia continued to cry, Richard stood up, his mind already racing with plans to make this right. He had no idea yet how he would do it, but he knew one thing for certain. Maria Gonzalez deserved so much more than a simple apology. The following morning, Richard sat in his study, his fingers steepled under his chin as he contemplated the weight of the situation. The early sunlight filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the room, mirroring the dark thoughts that occupied his mind. He had spent a sleepless night grappling with Olivia's confession and its implications. The betrayal cut deep, not just because of the lie itself, but because of what it revealed about his daughter's character. Where had he gone wrong in raising her? How had she become capable of such callousness? A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Olivia stood in the doorway, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, her usual confidence replaced by a demeanor of shame. "Dad," she said hesitantly. "Can we talk?" Richard nodded, gesturing for her to enter. Olivia sat across from him, her hands fidgeting nervously in her lap. "I couldn't sleep," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I kept thinking about Maria, about what I did. I want to make it right, Dad. I just don't know how." Richard studied his daughter, searching for signs of genuine remorse. "Olivia, what you did wasn't just a mistake. It was a deliberate choice that hurt an innocent person. Do you understand the gravity of that?" Olivia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes again. "I do now. I was so selfish, so stupid. Maria was always kind to me, and I repaid her with this." She gestured helplessly. Richard leaned forward, his voice firm but not unkind. "Actions have consequences, Olivia. And in this case, the consequences extend far beyond just you and me. Maria's entire life has been upended because of your lie." "I know," Olivia whispered. "What can we do? Can we just give her job back?" Richard shook his head. "It's not that simple. Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. And there's the matter of the days she's already lost, the stress she's endured. No, we need to do more than just reinstate her job." As they sat in silence, each lost in thought, Richard's eyes fell on a framed photo on his desk. It was a picture of him and his late father, standing proudly in front of the family business that Richard now ran. An idea began to form in his mind, radical and potentially life-changing, but somehow, right. "Olivia," he said slowly, "I want you to understand something. In business and in life, integrity is everything. Once you lose that, it's nearly impossible to get back. What you did, it shows a fundamental lack of integrity." Olivia flinched at his words but didn't argue. Richard continued, "I've always planned to pass the family business on to you someday, But now, I'm not sure you're ready for that responsibility. In fact, I'm not sure you understand the value of hard work and honesty at all." "What are you saying, Dad?" Olivia asked, her voice trembling. Richard took a deep breath. "I'm saying that actions have consequences, and the consequence of your action is going to be significant. I've made a decision, Olivia. I'm going to offer Maria a position in our company." Olivia's eyes widened in surprise. "At the company? Doing what?" "Not just any position," Richard said, his resolve strengthening as he spoke. "I'm going to offer her a management role. She's proven her loyalty, her work ethic, and her integrity over the years. Those are qualities I value in my business." "But Dad," Olivia protested, "she doesn't have the experience or education for that." Richard held up a hand. "She'll receive the necessary training. And as for you, Olivia, you're going to learn the value of hard work. You'll start at the bottom, working your way up like anyone else. No special treatment." The color drained from Olivia's face as the implications of her father's words sank in. You're choosing Maria over me?" "No," Richard said firmly. "I'm choosing to do what's right. I'm choosing to value integrity and hard work over entitlement. And I'm choosing to teach you a lesson that will serve you far better in the long run than any inheritance ever could." As Olivia sat there stunned into silence, Richard stood up. He had calls to make, arrangements to set in motion. It wouldn't be easy, and he knew there would be challenges ahead, but he was determined to make this right. "Dad?" Olivia's small voice stopped him at the door. "I really am sorry, and I think you're right. I need to learn." Richard nodded, a glimmer of hope warming his heart. Perhaps this difficult lesson would be the making of his daughter after all. As he left the study, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. It was time to right a wrong, and in doing so, reshape the future of both his family and his business. The modest apartment complex where Maria lived was a far cry from the luxurious Hartley mansion. Richard sat in his car, gathering his thoughts before approaching her door. The weight of the situation pressed heavily on his shoulders as he rehearsed the words he would say. Finally, with a deep breath, he stepped out of the car and made his way to Maria's unit. His knuckles had barely left the door when it swung open, revealing a surprised Maria. "Mr. Hartley?" she exclaimed, her eyes wide with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" Richard offered a gentle smile. "Hello, Maria. I was hoping we could talk. May I come in?" Maria hesitated for a moment before nodding and stepping aside. The small living room was neat and tidy, filled with family photos and modest furnishings. Richard's gaze fell on a young man in many of the pictures. Miguel, he presumed. "Please, sit down," Maria said, gesturing to the worn but clean sofa. "Can I get you something to drink?" Richard shook his head. "No, thank you. Maria, I've come here because I owe you an apology. A big one." Maria's brow furrowed in confusion. "An apology? I don't understand." Taking a deep breath, Richard began to explain. He told her about Olivia's confession, about the lie that had cost Maria her job, and about his own failure to see through it. As he spoke, he watched Maria's expression shift from confusion to shock, and finally to a mix of hurt and relief. "I can't begin to express how sorry I am," Richard concluded. "I should have trusted you, should have looked deeper into the situation. You've been a part of our family for so long, and I failed you." Maria sat in silence for a moment, processing the information. When she spoke, her voice was soft but steady. "Thank you for telling me this, Mr. Hartley. I won't pretend it doesn't hurt, but I'm grateful to know the truth." Richard leaned forward, his eyes meeting Maria's. "I want to make this right, Maria, not just with an apology, but with action. I'd like to offer you a job." Maria's eyebrows rose in surprise. "A job? You mean back at the house?" "No," Richard said, shaking his head. "Something different, something more. I'd like to offer you a management position at my company." The room fell silent as Maria stared at him in disbelief. A management position? But Mr. Hartley, I don't have the education or experience for that kind of role. Richard smiled. You have something more valuable: integrity, work ethic, and years of proven loyalty. The rest we can teach you. I'm prepared to provide all the training you'll need. Maria's eyes glistened with unshed tears. I don't know what to say. It's overwhelming. I know it's a lot to take in, Richard acknowledged, and I want you to know that this isn't charity or guilt. I truly believe you have what it takes to excel in this role. You've managed my household flawlessly for years. Now I'm offering you the chance to manage a department in my company. As Maria sat in stunned silence, Richard continued, There's more. I've also made some decisions regarding Olivia. She needs to learn the value of hard work and integrity. She'll be starting at an entry-level position in the company, working her way up like anyone else. Maria's eyes widened. Mr. Hartley, I don't want to cause problems between you and Olivia. She's just a child. Richard held up a hand. She's old enough to understand the consequences of her actions. This isn't punishment, Maria. It's a lesson, one I should have taught her long ago. Maria nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. And what does Mrs. Hartley think of all this? A flicker of sadness crossed Richard's face. Eleanor, she's been away at a wellness retreat. We've been having some difficulties, but that's a conversation for another time. They sat in companionable silence for a moment before Maria spoke again. Mr. Hartley, I'm deeply touched by your offer, but I need some time to think about it. This would be a big change for me and for Miguel. Richard nodded, standing up. Of course, take all the time you need. The offer will remain open. As he made his way to the door, Maria called out, Mr. Hartley? He turned to face her. Thank you, not just for the offer, but for believing in me. Richard smiled, a warmth spreading through his chest. Thank you, Maria, for everything. As he drove away from the apartment complex, Richard felt a mix of emotions: regret for the past, hope for the future, and a renewed determination to do right by both Maria and Olivia. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was committed to seeing it through. Little did he know, the changes he had set in motion would have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved. 2 weeks had passed since Richard's visit to Maria's apartment. The Hartley household had settled into an uneasy new routine, with Olivia sullen and quiet, and Richard dividing his time between work and trying to mend the fractured relationships around him. On a crisp Monday morning, Richard stood in the lobby of Hartley Enterprises, his eyes fixed on the elevator doors. When they finally opened, Maria stepped out, looking both nervous and determined in her new business attire. Good morning, Maria, Richard greeted her warmly. Ready for your first day? Maria nodded, smoothing down her blazer. As ready as I'll ever be, Mr. Hartley. I still can't believe this is happening. Richard led her through the bustling office, introducing her to key staff members along the way. They finally reached a spacious corner office with a nameplate reading, Maria Gonzalez, Operations Manager. This is your space, Richard said, gesturing for her to enter. I know it's a big change, but I have faith in you, Maria. Maria's eyes widened as she took in the view from the large windows. It's incredible, Mr. Hartley. I promise I won't let you down. As they discussed Maria's responsibilities and the training schedule, a commotion outside the office caught their attention. Richard opened the door to find Olivia standing there, looking flustered in her new, modest work attire. Dad? Olivia's voice was a mix of confusion and irritation. What's going on? Why is Maria here? Richard took a deep breath, placing a hand on Olivia's shoulder. Remember what we discussed, sweetheart? Maria is our new operations manager. And you're starting in the mailroom today, remember? Olivia's face flushed red. But Dad, this isn't fair. I said I was sorry. Olivia, Richard's voice was firm but not unkind. We talked about this. Actions have consequences. And this is about more than just saying sorry. It's about learning, and growing. Maria, who had been watching the exchange with a mix of sympathy and discomfort, stepped forward. "Olivia, I know this is difficult, but I want you to know that I don't hold any grudges. We both have an opportunity to learn and grow here." Olivia looked between her father and Maria, tears welling up in her eyes. For a moment, it seemed she might lash out again, but then her shoulders slumped in defeat. "Fine. Where's the mailroom?" As Richard led Olivia away, Maria sat down at her new desk, her mind reeling from the morning's events. She pulled out her phone and quickly typed a message to Miguel. "First day going well. Still can't believe this is real. Love you, mijo." Throughout the day, Maria threw herself into learning her new role. She sat through meetings, asked questions, and took copious notes. By late afternoon, her head was spinning with new information, but she felt a sense of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. Meanwhile, Olivia was having a very different first day. The mailroom was hot, noisy, and filled with people who didn't seem to care that she was Richard Hartley's daughter. By lunchtime, her feet ached, her hair was a mess, and she had paper cuts on 3 fingers. As she sat alone in the employee cafeteria, picking at a sandwich, Olivia couldn't help but reflect on how quickly her life had changed. Just weeks ago, she had been the princess of the Hartley household, and now, "Mind if I join you?" Olivia looked up to see Maria standing there, holding a tray. For a moment, Olivia wanted to say no, to lash out at the woman who now occupied the position she had always assumed would be hers. But something in Maria's kind eyes made her hesitate. "I guess," Olivia mumbled, gesturing to the empty seat. As Maria sat down, an awkward silence fell between them. Finally, Maria spoke. "I know this isn't easy for you, Olivia, but I want you to know that I'm rooting for you. Your father believes in you, and so do I." Olivia looked up, surprise evident on her face. "Why? After what I did to you?" Maria reached out, gently patting Olivia's hand. "Because I've known you since you were a little girl. I know there's goodness in you. This is a chance for both of us to start fresh." As they continued to talk, Olivia felt something shift inside her. The anger and resentment that had been building began to give way to something else. A glimmer of understanding, perhaps even respect. By the time lunch was over, Olivia found herself smiling for the first time that day. As she headed back to the mailroom, she felt a new sense of determination. If Maria could forgive her and start over, maybe she could too. As the day drew to a close, Richard watched from his office window as Maria and Olivia left the building together, engaged in animated conversation. A smile played on his lips. It was just the first day, and there would undoubtedly be challenges ahead. But for the first time in a long while, he felt hopeful about the future. As weeks turned into months, the dynamics at Hartley Enterprises continued to evolve. Maria, with her natural leadership skills and unwavering work ethic, quickly became an invaluable asset to the company. Her unique perspective, born from years of managing the Hartley household, brought fresh ideas to the table that impressed even the most seasoned executives. One crisp autumn morning, Maria sat in her office, reviewing quarterly reports, when a knock on her door interrupted her concentration. She looked up to see Olivia standing there, a stack of mail in her arms and an uncertain expression on her face. "Come in, Olivia," Maria said warmly. "What can I do for you?" Olivia entered, placing the mail on Maria's desk. I wanted to talk to you about something, if you have a minute." Maria nodded, gesturing for Olivia to take a seat. Over the past few months, she had watched the young woman grow and change, shedding her entitled attitude and embracing the challenges of her new position with surprising grace. "Of course," Maria replied. "What's on your mind?" Olivia took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, about what I did to you, and how much I've learned since then. I wanted to apologize again, properly this time." Maria listened intently as Olivia continued, her voice thick with emotion. "I was so selfish and short-sighted. I didn't understand the value of hard work or the importance of integrity, but working here, seeing how much respect everyone has for you, It's opened my eyes. Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes. I'm so sorry, Maria, for everything. You've always been there for me, and I treated you terribly. Can you ever forgive me? Maria reached across the desk, taking Olivia's hand in hers. Oh, mija, she said softly, falling back into the familiar term of endearment. I forgave you long ago. What matters now is that you've learned from this experience. Olivia nodded, wiping away a tear. I really have. And I wanted to ask you something else. What is it? Maria asked, curious. I was wondering if you'd be willing to mentor me, Olivia said hesitantly. I know I'm just in the mailroom now, but I want to learn. I want to be better, to understand the business the way you do. Maria felt a surge of pride and affection for the young woman before her. Olivia, I would be honored to mentor you, but you should know you've already come so far. Your father and I have both noticed your growth. A small smile played on Olivia's lips. Really? Dad hasn't said anything. He wanted you to find your own way, Maria explained. But believe me, he's proud of the progress you've made. As if on cue, Richard appeared in the doorway, a look of surprise on his face as he took in the scene before him. Everything okay in here? He asked, his gaze moving between Maria and Olivia. Olivia stood up, squaring her shoulders. Yes, Dad. Actually, I was just asking Maria if she'd be willing to mentor me. I want to learn more about the business, to really understand it from the ground up. Richard's eyebrows shot up, a smile spreading across his face. Is that so? Well, I think that's an excellent idea. Maria would be a wonderful mentor. As the three of them discussed the details of this new arrangement, there was a palpable sense of a new chapter beginning. The tension that had lingered in the air for months seemed to dissipate, replaced by a feeling of hope and possibility. Later that evening, as Richard drove home with Olivia, he couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. I'm proud of you, sweetheart, he said softly. You've really stepped up. Olivia turned to him, her eyes shining. Thanks, Dad. I'm trying. I want to make things right. Richard nodded, feeling a lump form in his throat. You are. And you know your mother would be proud too. At the mention of her mother, Olivia fell silent for a moment. Eleanor's continued absence was a wound that was still healing for both of them. Do you think she'll ever come back? Olivia asked quietly. Richard sighed. I don't know, sweetheart. But what I do know is that we're going to be okay, you and me. And we have Maria now, too. As they pulled into the driveway of their home, Richard felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced in years. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, he felt confident that they were on the right path. Inside the house, as Olivia headed upstairs to her room, she paused, turning back to her father. Dad, I love you. Richard smiled, his heart full. I love you too, Olivia. Always. As he watched his daughter disappear up the stairs, Richard knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family, redefined but stronger than ever. As spring blossomed in the city, Hartley Enterprises was abuzz with activity. The company was preparing to launch a new community outreach program, one that had been Olivia's brainchild and nurtured under Maria's mentorship. The initiative aimed to provide job training and opportunities for underprivileged youth, inspired by Maria's own journey from housekeeper to executive. On a sunny afternoon, Maria sat in her office reviewing the final proposal when a knock on her door interrupted her concentration. She looked up to see Olivia standing there, a mixture of excitement and nervousness on her face. Come in, Olivia, Maria said warmly. How are you feeling about the presentation tomorrow? Olivia took a seat across from Maria, fidgeting slightly with the folder in her hands. I'm nervous but excited too. I really want this program to succeed. Maria smiled reassuringly. You've put so much work into this, mija. I'm sure the board will see its value. As they discussed the finer points of the proposal, Richard appeared in the doorway, a proud smile on his face as he watched the two women engrossed in conversation. He cleared his throat gently to announce his presence. "Dad!" Olivia exclaimed, jumping up to greet him. "What do you think? Are we ready for tomorrow?" Richard nodded, his eyes twinkling. "More than ready, but I actually came to share some news with both of you." Maria and Olivia exchanged curious glances as Richard took a seat. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately," he began, his voice thoughtful. "About the company, about our future, and about family." He paused, looking at each of them in turn. "I've decided it's time for me to step back from day-to-day operations. I want to focus on the bigger picture, on our philanthropic efforts, and on spending more time with the people who matter most." Olivia's eyes widened. "But Dad, who's going to run the company?" Richard smiled, reaching out to take both Maria's and Olivia's hands. "That's why I'm here. Maria, I'd like to offer you the position of CEO." Maria gasped, her free hand flying to her mouth in shock. "Mr. Hartley, Richard, I don't know what to say. Are you sure?" Richard nodded firmly. "I've never been more sure of anything. You've proven yourself time and time again. The company has thrived under your leadership in operations, and I know you'll take us to even greater heights as CEO." Turning to Olivia, he continued, "And you, sweetheart, I'm so proud of how far you've come. I'd like you to take over as head of our new community outreach division. This program you've developed shows real vision and heart." Olivia's eyes filled with tears of joy and disbelief. "Oh, Dad, thank you. I promise I won't let you down." As the three of them sat there, the weight of the moment settling over them, Maria felt a surge of emotion. "I never dreamed this was possible," she said softly. "When I first came to work for your family, I was just hoping to provide a better life for Miguel. And now—" Richard squeezed her hand gently. "You've earned this, Maria. Your integrity, your work ethic, your compassion. These are the qualities that make a great leader, and you've been an incredible influence on Olivia." Olivia nodded enthusiastically. "It's true, Maria. I've learned so much from you, not just about business, but about what it means to be a good person." As they continued to discuss the transition and their plans for the future, there was a palpable sense of excitement and possibility in the air. The journey that had begun with a lie and a misunderstanding had led them to this moment of truth and transformation. Later that evening, as Maria drove home to share the news with Miguel, she couldn't help but marvel at the twists and turns her life had taken. From housekeeper to CEO, from employee to family, it was more than she had ever dared to dream. Meanwhile, at the Hartley home, Richard and Olivia sat on the patio, watching the sunset. "Dad," Olivia said softly, "I've been thinking about Mom a lot lately. Do you think she'd be proud of us?" Richard put his arm around his daughter's shoulders. "I think she would be, sweetheart. We've all grown so much. And who knows, maybe one day she'll come back and see for herself." As the sky turned a brilliant orange, father and daughter sat in comfortable silence, both reflecting on the past and looking forward to the future. They had weathered storms and come out stronger, not just as individuals, but as a family that now included Maria and Miguel. The next day would bring new challenges and opportunities. But for now, in this moment of quiet reflection, all was right in their world. The story that had begun with a lie was ending with a truth more powerful than any of them could have imagined. That family is not defined by blood, but by love, trust, and the willingness to grow together. As the warm summer sun bathed the city in a golden glow, the Hartley Enterprises building stood tall, its windows reflecting the promise of a new day. Inside, the boardroom buzzed with anticipation as employees, board members, and special guests gathered for a momentous announcement. Richard Hartley stood at the head of the table, his eyes twinkling with pride as he surveyed the room. To his right sat Maria, poised and confident in her new role as CEO. To his left, Olivia beamed, her portfolio of community outreach programs clutched close to her heart. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard began, his voice strong and clear, "today marks a new chapter for Hartley Enterprises. Over the past year, we've experienced tremendous growth, not just in our business, but in our understanding of what truly matters." He gestured to Maria. "I'm thrilled to officially introduce Maria Gonzalez as our new CEO. Her journey from housekeeper to the head of this company is a testament to her extraordinary skills, unwavering integrity, and the power of second chances." Applause filled the room as Maria stood, her eyes glistening with emotion. "Thank you, Richard, and thank you all for your trust. I promise to lead this company with the same dedication and care I've always brought to my work, no matter the role." Richard then turned to Olivia. "And I'm equally proud to announce that my daughter, Olivia, will be heading our new community outreach division. Her innovative programs will ensure that Hartley Enterprises continues to give back to the community that has supported us for so long." As Olivia stood to present her initiatives, the door at the back of the room quietly opened. A collective gasp rippled through the audience as Eleanor Hartley, Richard's estranged wife, slipped in. Richard's eyes widened in surprise, but a small smile played on his lips. After the presentations concluded and the room began to clear, Richard, Maria, Olivia, and Eleanor gathered in a quiet corner. The air was thick with unspoken words and emotions. Eleanor spoke first, her voice soft but steady. "I've been following the company's progress from afar. What you've all accomplished. It's incredible. I'm so proud of you, Olivia." Olivia's eyes welled with tears as she embraced her mother. "I've missed you, Mom. So much has changed." As the family reunited, Maria began to step away, feeling like an intruder on a private moment. But Richard gently caught her arm. "Maria, please stay. You're a part of this family now, too." Eleanor nodded in agreement. "Richard's right. Maria, I owe you an apology and a thank you. You've been there for my family in ways I couldn't be." As the five of them, including Miguel, who had been invited to the announcement, talked and laughed together, there was a sense of pieces falling into place. The journey that had begun with a lie had transformed them all, teaching lessons of forgiveness, growth, and the true meaning of family. Later that evening, as they all gathered for dinner at the Hartley home, now a warm and welcoming place filled with love and laughter, Richard raised his glass in a toast. "To second chances," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "and to the family we choose." As their glasses clinked together, Maria looked around the table at the faces of those who had become so dear to her. From housekeeper to CEO, from outsider to family, it had been an extraordinary journey. But the greatest gift, she realized, wasn't the title or the success. It was this, the bonds of love and trust they had forged together. As the evening wore on, filled with stories, laughter, and plans for the future, one thing was clear. The story that had begun with a lie had ended with a beautiful truth. That family is not defined by blood or circumstance, but by the love we share and the grace we show one another. And in that, they had all found their happily ever after. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Now, how about another one? To watch another nice story, just click on the video appearing on your screen.